Hello, you guys. Welcome to my channel, All Things Militia, where I discuss a lot about what's going on in the political world, but also topics that pertain to everyday life in general. If you are subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you guys. Don't forget, if you see a video that you like, hit that thumbs up button for your girl. Leave a comment down below because I want to get your thoughts on the topics I'm discussing. Share the video. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. You can do all of those things and don't forget to subscribe. Also, you guys, if you like, you can hit that bell notification button so that whenever I post, you will be notified. So I just wanted to come on here quickly tonight to discuss the topic of the past. You know, sometimes it's good to reflect back over the past to be able to appreciate where you are now or how far you've come. So this is a political reflection, and it's pertaining to the Kamala Harris run for president. Now, if you remember the election of 2024, President Biden was made to step down by his party. Initially, he was on record saying that he was not going to step down. He was going to run again. But by the influence of his party, he was made to step down very quickly after that debate that he had with President Trump when he announced that they had finally beaten Medicare. Yeah, it was thrown off. At any rate, you guys, that's when they wanted to act like the lying liberal media wanted to act like there was something wrong with his cognitive ability, but it had been there all along. So at any rate, after they, pushed him out of the way, they brought up Kamala Harris, and when you know, they did not even hold a primary for her. You know, the party that was fighting for democracy and was trying to fight against authoritarianism and was, claiming to really be trying to fight to save our country, did not even hold a primary. Just put a candidate up and assumed because she was a woman, which would have been historic for this country, and that she was black, although it was reported that she was Indian, but they were trying to run off of identity politics, and it was an epic failure because she lost in a landslide. At any rate, let's hear some of what Joe Biden had to state about the situation.
Honesty's been a strong point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mr. President, some have even argued that leaving the race and endorsing your Vice President Harris, over 100 days before the election hampered her campaign.
Well,
what do you say to those critics?
I say, number one, that there were still 6 full months. She was in every aspect, every decision I made, every decision we made. And I don't think, I hope I didn't sound the wrong way. I don't think anybody thought we'd be successful as we were. I don't think anybody thought we'd pass the Recovery Act. I don't think anybody thought we'd deal with CHIPS and Science Act. I don't think anybody think we'd have all we got done in a close race. Think about it.
Yeah.
We got more major legislation passed to fundamentally change the direction of the country.
True.
Yep, Kamala was with you every step of the way while you made all of those horrible decisions, leaving the border wide open the entire time you was in office, which is why we're in this mess that we're in now. We don't know who's in the country. They're talking about sleeper cells and all of that stuff now, where you're having all of these terror attacks or threats of terrorist attacks. Then he drained our oil reserves, made us energy dependent, gave all of our money away to Ukraine, had a horrible withdrawal from Afghanistan, was on the beach most of the time. Okay, it was an administration that I am glad is over, but it's just so interesting how they would just blatantly lie. And then he's talking about his administration passed more legislation to fundamentally change the country. Yeah, y'all pretty much did for the worst. And that's why we're trying to get it reversed now. But it's just interesting. I know it wasn't a Recovery Act for drugs that you was talking about that you all passed, because we still don't know who that cocaine that was found at the White House belonged to, but we have a pretty good idea who it belonged to. But you guys, these people will blatantly lie. Like, check this out.
the strongest economy in the world when we left. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact.
Bullshit.
But look what's happened in the meantime.
Yeah. Well, let me just follow up with this, because when the vice president was here, I asked her if she would have done something differently than your administration over the past 4 years. And because of all the successes that your administration had, I think her response was, there is not a thing that comes to mind. Now, that answer was weaponized against her. And there has been some reporting that you encouraged her for there to be no daylight between the two of you. First, is that true? And do you think in retrospect that she should have tried to differentiate all the wins that your administration had?
Well, look, first of all, I did not advise her to say that.
Well, that was an interesting way to frame a question. So she's pretty much telling Biden that she asked the former Vice President Kamala if she would have done anything different from Biden, his administration, and that Kamala said no because of all of Biden's successes. And then turned around and said that the Republicans, or, Trump them, weaponized her answer. Why would that answer have to be weaponized, or even need to be weaponized, if it was true? If he had a lot of successes, then there's no need for her to do anything differently. But he did not have a lot of success, which is why when she answered that question that she wouldn't change anything, it was pretty much like she was weaponizing her own weapon against herself. Let's just continue.
President Biden was deeply unpopular. I did realize that. And during your appearance, and you write about it, you say, everything about my appearance on The View was going well until it wasn't. And if you recall, you were here 28 days before the election. And I asked you if there was anything you would have done differently than President Biden during the past 4 years. And you said, quote, there is not a thing that comes to mind, end quote. You write you had no idea, you just pulled the pin on a hand grenade. In the moment, I knew. The Trump campaign weaponized your answer against you, my question. And some, including James Carville and Jake Tapper, point to that answer as a turning point in your candidacy. Do you think that moment tipped the election?
No.
Good, because Sonny doesn't want to take the blame.
There was kind of a confessional happening here. No.
Solve you?
Exactly. No. There were many things. I mean, listen.
See how fake they are, you guys? So she practically told Kamala starting off that Joe Biden was deeply unpopular and that she saw that. But when she was talking to Biden, when they had him on the show, she didn't make mention of him being very unpopular. She was talking about how he was very successful. Now, why would he be unpopular with the people if he was very successful? So these people are straight up fake. And then goes on to say, did she think that did she believe that by her making a statement that she wouldn't do anything different from Biden was like pretty much what pulled the trigger on her campaign? And she said, no, it was a number of things. Pretty much this campaign was dead before it even started. Okay, because number one, you were not chosen. They didn't hold a primary, they just put you up there. And that alone let us know that these people were desperate. I think they were counting on the events of the Butler, Pennsylvania, that assassination attempt on Trump. Thank God that didn't succeed. I think they were counting on that to be successful so that they wouldn't have to try to figure out who they were going to try to get and use. I think if President Trump had unfortunately, been assassinated, then they probably would have tried to run Biden again. But because that event was unsuccessful, thanks to God, they had to try to hurry up and figure something out, because that game that they was running, that Biden was the most mentally and physically fit to serve, had run out, and they knew they couldn't use him again. So they had to figure something out and figure it out quickly. So they just hurried up and put her up there without even holding a primary, you guys. The party that was fighting so hard for democracy did not follow a democratic process, which is to hold a primary and allow the people to choose who they wanted to be their candidate. But like they always do, they use identity politics, race, gender to try to sway people to vote for her because she's black or vote for her because she's a woman. No, we're looking at your competency. Okay, that's what we were interested in. And we knew based off of the way she performed as vice president, she was not competent. She was over the border. She was the border czar. And you see what happened with that. They left the border open the entire time, didn't close it down until I think like July of 2024, literally months before the election. That's when they decided to finally close up the border. But his entire term, they left the border was left wide open. Then she took that little bogus trip down to a certain part of the border where they weren't crossing to make it seem like, oh, nothing's going on with the border. There's nothing, that we were making up what we were saying as far as how the border was being overran, as if Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and DeSantis of Florida was making up stories about how all these people were flooding in to the point where they started busing them up to sanctuary cities. And then when they took them to Martha's Vineyard got the army and got them people out of there the same day. So it was just a lot of lies, a lot of deception that was going on. And that's the reason why Democrats lost and why they're having a hard time right now. But let's continue on, you guys.
No, there were many things. I mean, listen, I do believe one of the biggest deciders of the outcome of that election was that the American people were sick of things being so expensive.
Yes.
And wanted that the prices would come down. And that's where, this is part of why I wrote the book, which is, let's remember in those 107 days what Donald Trump was talking about. Yeah. First of all, he said his number one priority and the number one thing he would do is bring down costs.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And I believe there are a lot of people who voted for him believing that that's what he would do. Fast forward to today.
Yeah. Hello.
Prices are higher. The cost of food is higher. Inflation is higher. Unemployment is higher. He lied.
Yeah.
He lied. He lied. Like y'all do every single day. Oh my gosh. And then she said she believes that the number one reason why that election was a failure for them was because she believes that people were tired of the high cost of everything being expensive. Oh, so now you're confessing that prices rose under Biden. Okay. And then when Trump got in office, literally he hadn't even been in office for a full 100 days, not even a full, a quarter of a year. And they were trying to say, oh, well, you said you was going to bring prices down and prices haven't come down yet, as if he's a genie or something. Like it was 4 years of you all's failed policies that got us in the mess that we were in. And then you were expecting for him to overnight change it and want to just come out make it like he was just, lying about doing it. I mean, it's only been a little over a year. Come on now, give it time. And the reason why things are up now is because of this war that's going on with Iran. But in my opinion, still better than having the former administration. I'm just saying, you guys. Moreover,
Meanwhile, there are certain promises he did keep, which is he was going to weaponize the Department of Justice and go after his political enemies, that he was going to silence critics against him, that he was going to fulfill whatever his fragile ego needed through the tool of our federal government. That he did, whatever he needed to do to enrich himself, literally his pockets, not to mention his ego, he has done.
I just can't, you guys. These people are of their father, the devil, and his works they have done and are yet doing. It's crazy how she could say that he did keep some promises, and one was to weaponize the Department of Justice. You mean like you all did? Where for the first time in history, a president's home was raided by the FBI over some documents that he reportedly had the authority to take. Meanwhile, Biden was found to have done the same thing, taking classified documents when he did not have the authority to take it, because that was at the time that he was a senator and at the time, I believe, that he was a vice president. But then they wanted to say, oh, well, he's too old to be prosecuted for Biden. But aren't Biden and Trump around the same age? Okay, first time in history a president had to get a mugshot taken. First time in history a president was going in and out of courts over stuff they didn't even have to do with taxpayer dollars. It was his own personal businesses. When you had companies coming out saying there was no injury, we received our payment from Trump, we're good. Okay, but they still wanted to target him and go after him. So she's talking about him trying to weaponize the Department of Justice. And if you remember, leading up to the 2024 election, they started running those ads. He's going to try to weaponize the Department of Justice. He's the same thing that they had done. Then they started trying to accuse him of doing or was going to do. Just hypocrites, you guys. And then she made a statement saying that he was going to silence his critics. Now, during the Biden administration, there was heavy censorship. Okay, you know, when COVID situation came out, they were using reportedly big tech. You had Zuckerberg, whatever his name is, of Facebook, saying how the Biden administration told them pretty much to censor people, conservative voices that were speaking out against what the administration was doing. Okay, literally came out and said that. And then if you were on social media platforms and you were more so on the right, they were censoring people left and right. Wouldn't even let doctors speak out against COVID and what was going on. Nurses couldn't speak out against COVID, what was going on. Anybody that had questions regarding that election, that very questionable 2020 election, was censored. They wanted to call people an election denier, wouldn't even hear people out. Although there were certain people that had sworn under oath that they had witnessed election fraud, but they were silenced. Okay, it was just a lot of censorship, a lot of just straight up hypocrisy and corruption that was taking place during that administration, right before they were installed, during their installment, and after their installment. And the reason why they weren't able to pull it off again was because President Trump made sure this time that they had poll watchers. You remember when they had, I think Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law, was over that to make sure that, they were keeping tabs on what was going on. There was no shady business, because during that 2020 election, they was finding that people after the election that was running ballots through the machine multiple times, the same ballot. And it happened to bring in truckloads of ballots after midnight on election night, after they had stopped the count. So it's just a lot of hypocrisy, you guys, with this administration, with that administration, I should say. And then she wanted to talk about him enriching himself. First of all, Trump was a billionaire. He was a made man before he became president. Okay, I don't know how many times I got to tell people this. Whether he's getting benefits now or not, who knows, who cares? He was already a made man before he ran for office. And he's not taking a presidential salary. He's donating his presidential salary to charity like he did during his first term. Unlike other presidents who practically came into office on a $200,000 salary, if that, and leave probably billionaires, all the money they didn't launder, but definitely leave millionaires. Okay, so they're so concerned about Trump's pockets and stuff, but Trump was already rich before he got into politics. So just the hypocrisy of it all is just very annoying to me, you guys. And that's the reason why I believe, this liberal party is having a hard time. And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better for them, because they can't help themselves but to lie. And they use their bought and paid for liberal media to help them keep running this narrative. And even though they've had the mainstream media in a hamstring, it's not doing them any good. And they still are not switching up their play. But it's all good. Keep doing it the way you do it, because we that's what we like. We like for you all to lose. But at any rate, you guys, I'm going to leave it like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about what I, discussed. And you guys have a great night.